Welcome to a Good Enough Lap Guide in the Mazda MX5 at Okayama International Circuit, your lap guide to move up through the splits. The idea behind this video is to give you guys a lap that's good enough to build a foundation off of. If you can get within a second to a second and a half of this lap and race with the focus on surviving, you'll be able to move your way up through the splits and eventually get in the top split. This week we're racing at Okayama. This is a classic track. It's in a lot of games, so you're probably pretty familiar with it if you played any other games before. It's a pretty straightforward track, but there are some nuances to it. Like turn 1 has a specific feel to it. Turn 2 has a specific feel to it. You get into turn 4, you have to hit that right. And then you get into the hairpin. The hairpin's a spot where you can really make up a lot of time with your braking and just really being aggressive with your braking there. But then you get into turn 6, that downhill left-hander. That's a very unique corner. And then the turn into turn 7, and then you finish with turn 8 and turn 9. Both of those late apexes, to nail those corners is pretty tricky. It's an interesting track because on the surface it seems very straightforward and very simple, but there are a lot of small nuances to the track. If you watched any of my other track guides for this season, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record when I talk about the MX5, but overall, you will have oversteer on entry and middle, so you just need to be really careful, especially when on cold tires on entry and middle, because you can over-rotate the car and spin out. But the nuance with this car is getting comfortable with that rotation and using it to your advantage to get a really good turn in and finding the limit without letting it get loose on you and spinning out. And then once we get through the middle of the corner and we get back on throttle, the car picks up understeer, so it's very important you take your time when you're turning into the corner, that you make sure you have the car fully rotated so that when you get back on the throttle and it starts to pick up that understeer, you have already put enough rotation in the corner that you can absorb the understeer, so to speak, coming off the corner and not have to let off the gas because you're pushing too wide, let the car rotate again, then get back on the gas. So you really need to be patient. Make sure you've got most of the rotation out of the way so that when you get back on the throttle and it picks up that understeer, you can exit the corner nicely. The weather for this lap was 81 degrees Fahrenheit or 27.2 degrees Celsius. The track temp was 118 degrees Fahrenheit or 47.7 degrees Celsius, and the lap time was a 145.112. Alright, let's get into the lap. For turn 1, there's a fire extinguisher on the wall. I like to use that as a reference as my braking point for the corner. As we're headed into the corner, we're going to be aiming for a late apex. For turn 2, you'll have a lifting point, and that's where the green curb starts on the right. You'll be aiming for a middle to late apex as we go through the corner. I like to use the curb on the opposite side of the track as a reference for when I should get back on the gas. I like to get back on the gas just before the car is pointed in that direction. This is all pretty straightforward through here, just clip your apexes. For turn 4, your braking point will be about 20 feet before the 50 sign on the left. As we're headed through the corner, we're going to be shooting for a middle apex. And you can get back on the throttle once you hit your apex. I find that clipping the apex and letting the car float back out wide as opposed to hugging the corner all the way around will give you the best run out of the corner and opportunity to pass going into 5. As we're headed into turn 5, I find this is an opportunity to make up some time. A lot of people are pretty conservative with their braking points going into this corner. Then the braking point will be right around the 100 sign. As we're headed through the corner, it'll be a late apex. You want to keep a tight line coming out of the corner so you have the best line going into turn 6. It'll just be a lifting point for turn 6, and just make sure you're in second gear as you go through the corner. You'll have an early apex for the corner, and then on exit you can take advantage of the generous track limits. Your turn-in and braking point will be as the curb comes back to the track. It'll be a middle apex for the corner, and this is one of those corners you want to be really patient, let the car rotate before you get back on the gas. For turn 8, your braking point will be just after the 50 sign. It'll be a late apex for the corner, and this is a tricky corner to optimize. You got to get used to the rotation of the car in first gear, which can be tricky. So just take your time with it. Eventually you'll get the muscle memory. And then for turn 9, it's just a lifting point. It'll be a late apex for the corner, and again, you need to be really patient going through this corner before you get back on the throttle. For turn 10, you can cut the curb. You just don't want to go much further than I did, or you will get a slowdown penalty. And then for turn 11, you're going to brake right where that gray gravel ends on the left. It'll be a middle apex for the corner. The car is going to want to rotate on its own through the corner, so you will see my steering's pretty straight until we get to the apex. Once you get to the apex, you can get back on the throttle. And that's your good enough lap guide, the Mazda MX5 at Okayama. If you guys liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If you guys like to catch the next one of these as I do them every week, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.